So I finally got around to reading the complete life and times of Scrooge McDuck, the iconic comic collection that I've heard so much about. And I have to say that, yeah, I am indeed a fan, at least of this collection. I'm not sure if I would enjoy... actually, I'm pretty sure I would enjoy a lot of these other comics, but I haven't heard enough about them to really judge about that, but I really like this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was very entertaining. I thought it was very engaging. I thought the character of Scrooge himself was generally pretty fleshed out. I'm going to say generally here, and I think it has more to do with like the continuity of the character, whatever. Generally pretty fleshed out. Very exciting, very interesting, a lot more interesting than I thought it would be, actually, when it comes to like the character of Scrooge. He's not just a guy who has money. Like, this is a guy who worked for that money, and this entire thing seems to really emphasize that. I'm not sure if it's like a core aspect of his character or not, but this was the thing that really surprised me, really surprised and impressed me about the book, about the comic, right? Is that it really showcases how long it takes, how much effort it takes to become successful. And even when you do have some luck doing something, you're going to be set back by something else. It's the reality of trying to build something from nothing. And Scrooge goes out and does it. He does the legwork. He goes on his adventures. He sort of builds up his sort of what he wants. He sort of builds up his money bin. It shows how that happens, and it's interesting, it's charming, it's funny, it's well drawn, and it's really grounded in reality. It's not overtly cartoony. It's very realistic in that sense. It feels like they offer real, legitimate scientific explanations for natural phenomena and history on occasion. I mean, there are some exaggerations, obviously, but it feels very Indiana Jonesy. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like almost like something that could actually happen in certain ways, and that's so entertaining. It's so appealing to me, and throughout the entire thing, Scrooge goes out on different adventures throughout the world, right? To like Africa, to America, and back to everywhere, right? Like, this motherfucker goes everywhere, and it never stops being entertaining. It never stops being fresh, and it never stops being fun. It never stops being engaging. I legitimately love this. I think it's fantastic, and I imagine I would have been a huge fan if I had gotten into it younger. Right now, the big thing that I think is preventing me from coming out and talking about this is that, like, coming out and saying that, like, yeah, I'm a big fan now. Well, I haven't read enough material. I don't know what the series as a whole is like. I don't know what the other writers are like. I don't know, like, how Disney handles this brand. I don't know anything about that, okay? So I liked this book, but I'm not sure if I would like the other comics, because I don't know anything about them. I've heard next to nothing about them, actually. I would never have picked this up if people haven't been recommending it to me since I played DuckTales Remastered on Wii U. And again, I like that game as well, but this kind of this is pushing me more down that road of like, yeah, I'm a big fan of this. So, what are the book's problems? Well, this might be because I'm such a pleb, I'm such a neophyte, but this comic really does feel like it's stuck a little bit too much in established lore and continuity. It feels like it's trying to bundle together a bunch of narrative tidbits from other writers that were never really meant to go together, and that's kind of apparent with like certain plot elements that I imagine would not be present in other stories. For example, how does Scrooge McDuck get started? How does he get started in his career? Well, he works really hard he goes out into the street and he starts like shining boots. Like he's a boot boy. He's basically the skunk from Animal Crossing, right? What's his name? Basically that guy. Kicks. So he's that guy, right? He goes out shining people's boots, and he doesn't make any money for the longest time, and then someone gives him something. And Scrooge is really, really excited until he learns that it's actually an American coin, which causes him to vow that he's going to one day be successful, and he's going to one day become rich and powerful, have money essentially, and he uses that con as an excuse, as inspiration for that moment. And I thought, like, wow, what an interesting introduction to a character. What an interesting way to build up this character. I love that. And then it's revealed that, like, his father or something set up the deal to, like, get this to happen, and it is just, no, that aspect of it was stupid. That aspect was pointless, added nothing to the story. In fact, it kind of detracted from it, honestly. And the entire thing is filled with moments like that, where it feels like it's made for, like, really hardcore McDuck fans, right? Who know everything about the characters and the history and stuff like that. So, like, there were plenty of times where I was just, like, watching this, when I was reading this, and there are so many times where, like, they make a reference to something and don't really, it's not really apparent to me as a casual reader what they're talking about. Like, really, if I wasn't already aware of, like, certain tidbits, I would have no idea what's going on. Like, but the comic goes out of its way to, like, explain that, like, oh, someday Scrooge will be successful. Someday he'll have these nephews, and he'll have Donald, and they'll go on adventures together. Like, that's not interesting. To me, it's like the heart and soul of this should be about how Scrooge McDuck makes his fortune. I don't really care about Donald and the nephews at all. If anything, honestly, my least favorite segment of this was probably the end, in which they meet up for the first time. And it feels like, to me, there was no reason for that to happen. In fact, I have no idea, reading this volume. There's another one here that I think elaborates more on some of these elements. So forgive me if, like, if they elaborate this in the other volume. But in this volume, it's made apparent that, like, Scrooge has become so embittered by his adventures and everything he's gone through that he doesn't really care about his family anymore. So, like, he pretty much disavows all of them, Donald included, and he invites them over for seemingly no reason at the end. And I don't know if, like, they explain this in another comic, but in this one, it's like, it just kind of comes out of nowhere. The progression is weird. The pacing is weird. I don't know. Like, I kind of wish they kind of focus exclusively, right, on how Scrooge McDuck made his money and how that turned against his family. Like, one of the things I noticed when I was reading this is that, like, Scrooge would have been successful a long time ago if it wasn't for his bum-ass family squandering their family wealth, essentially, because they were already family. Like, these fuckers just didn't work for the longest time and make only Scrooge worked. Only Scrooge built himself up, and these fuckers were coming back. Like, these fuckers were coming to him like, oh, Scrooge, you have to come back and protect our family castle. Like, what? Come the fuck on, protect it yourself. Like, shit, it should never have gotten to that position to begin with. It's just, I would have been pissed. Like, I would never have, like, tolerated that shit. And Scrooge doesn't give a shit. Like, that's not the reason he doesn't like them. It's just them, I don't know, being. It's just people being envious of his wealth. Really, that's the reason he becomes so bitter, and that's, like, a really interesting theme. Something that I myself have begun to notice in most lazy people, communists, socialists, boomers, working class boomers, people like that. Like, they don't like anyone who's successful. They always make excuses. They always try and justify it, like, oh, he came from a rich background. He has his parents had money. He had an education. People like him. They'll do anything, right, to try and justify this idea that they have that you don't actually deserve your wealth and success. And that's something that I think Scrooge McDuck handles really, really well. It's a really interesting theme, and something they do to great effect with strangers, right? And but it doesn't quite go to the point where, like, damn, this is really, really good. Like, I like it a lot, right? I do like it a lot, but there are aspects of it that I would have changed. Did it really need to, like? I kind of wish it was its own thing rather than, like, adhering to, like, these established cliches of the brand or whatever. Like, maybe that was like a Disney mandate or whatever. Maybe, like, oh, you have to reference the fact that, like, oh, someday Donald Duck is going to be a thing, and, like, this is his mom, and it's just I don't they did. It's a really good comic. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot of fun, and Scrooge himself is a great character, really entertaining. I related a lot to him. I found his adventures to be extremely compelling, for the most part. But I thought it was great. Like, all around, like, I highly recommend this. If you're a fan of comics, you need to check this out.